Hello there. Today I'm lucky enough to be in the barrel hall of the Petra Winery in Tuscany, a winery located in the Val di Cornia. And here at the winery they regard this as being part of the Costa Toscana, coastal Tuscany, and the winery has some really beautiful views out towards the sea and to Elba in the distance. The winery was established back in 1997 when what was an old farm was purchased by Vittorio Moretti, and Vittorio had made his money in construction, and as a result when he came to build his winery here in 2001, it was finally completed in 2003, he needed it both to be architecturally outstanding and also highly functional. And I think you can see from the surroundings of the barrel hall I'm standing in that it's really quite splendid. Although there were vines planted here, the team who set up the winery were working pretty much with a blank slate and set about planting a number of varieties. They focused mainly on Bordeaux grape varieties with Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, but also Sangiovese. They did also have plantings of Syrah, but today they've stopped producing a straight Sangiovese and they've stopped producing the Syrah to concentrate more on making blends from the Bordeaux grape varieties that they're growing. Now the wine I'm looking at the moment is their Merlot, which is named Quercegobbe. This is the 2023 vintage of this, and it's a Toscano Rosso. Evidently the translation of Quercegobbe is hunchbacked oak. And I think the point is that this comes from plots of vines in part of the vineyard where there were old oaks growing that were hunched over because of the effects of the winds here. Soils here are predominantly clay, making them very well suited to the production of Merlot. The clays are derived from a stone in the soil called flich, which is a sort of mudstone. There's also a preponderance of limestone, so both the clays and the limestone are quite good at retaining water, and yet the presence of stones in the soils helps drainage. Up until 2022, viticulture was conducted here organically, and although they were certified, I don't think they ever actually specified that on the label. However, since then they've drawn back from that because they actually believe it's more sustainable to farm sustainably because of fears over the damage that using copper sulphate in the vineyards on a long-term basis can do to the environment. The fruit for this particular wine was all hand-picked. The winery here is set up so the fruit is delivered to grape reception at the top and is poured into the tanks, ensuring that there's no pumping of the fruit anywhere, which stops the skins and the pips being broken up and stops the release of unwanted bitter elements into the wine. Fermentation goes on in temperature-controlled stainless steel tanks, and in recent years the winery has been slightly changing their approaches, favouring longer post-fermentation maceration and shortening the amount of time that the wine spends in oak. So after it's undergone malolactic conversion, the wine goes into barrel, predominantly barrique, although I believe they do use a small amount of larger format oak. They used about 35% of new French oak in this vintage, and the wine stayed in barrel for 9 months. Previously, it had been aged in barrel for 18 months. Now what they do is for the remaining 9 months, the wine goes into concrete tanks, and that helps to preserve some of the freshness of the fruit into the final wine. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? A lovely deep colour here, a sort of a purple red. It's not quite opaque, but there's a nice dark constituency to the colour. The wine has 14% alcohol and is very readily forming tears on the side of the glass there, so that's not surprising. So let's see what we make of the aromas, shall we? The aromas are an absolutely delicious, I'd almost say captivating red fruit. There's lively, fresh mulberry or fresh raspberry notes there, really sort of lifted, juicy red fruit perfumes. They're really delicate, really elegant. I suppose there's almost a sort of a hint of red currant. There are perhaps some meaty hints, but the oak is very restrained. There aren't strong notes of cedar on the nose or anything like that. So let's have a taste. The palate has quite a powerful, rich black fruit, black cherries, almost sort of black plum, even perhaps a hint of sort of prune, that sort of high ripeness note there. Again, there are some slight notes of cedar and sweet spice underlying that, but they're beautifully integrated with the fruit, and really it's the fruit that comes to the fore, with a wonderful smooth, velvety texture to the tannins. There are chocolatey notes. There's almost sort of notes of slight over-ripeness, sort of touches of prune, but throughout the whole thing, there's really good acidity helping to lift this fruit, keep it juicy towards the finish. Now, as I've mentioned with the aromas, the oak is very well integrated with the fruit, but it's the rich fruit that really comes to the fore, with it being supported by cedary notes, sweet spices, and a lovely chocolatey texture. The wine has some good length, and actually it's 14.5% alcohol. It doesn't actually stand out particularly as being hot, and it's being really quite well balanced by the full, rich, juicy fruit. The flavours last well, and the finish is attractive. The wine is nearly 3 years old, but actually it's already achieved really quite a good balance. Having said that, with good acidity and the fine tannic structure running through the whole wine, I think that it's probably a wine that you could quite happily put away for 5, 6, 7, 8 years to find that it will gain in complexity. But actually, in terms of drinkability, I don't think you need to wait. I think it's the kind of wine that can be drunk now very happily. I took a look at the Wine Searcher aggregated critics score, and this is getting 92 out of 100. I think that's a very fair score. I did almost wonder whether it's perhaps worth 93, such as the elegance of the structure and the really lovely perfumes. Either way, I think this is a very elegant wine that really does actually reflect the place it's from and the style of the winery very well. I've really quite enjoyed it. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed the tasting. If you have, do please press the like button. That would be fantastic. If you're watching these tastings and you enjoy them, do please consider subscribing. That would really help me to develop the channel further. If you have any friends you think might like to watch, do please feel free to pass it on to them. That would be a wonderful endorsement coming from you. If you have any comments or any questions you want to ask, do please pop those in the comments box below. I'd love to hear from you about what you think about the wine, looking at the tastings I'm doing, or anything else that relates to that. I will, of course, leave a link below to the Wine Searcher webpage for this vintage of this wine, so you can see if it's available near you, what price. So thank you once again for taking the time to watch this video, and I do hope that maybe you'll manage to make some time and come and join me again in the near future to watch another one. Till then, bye for now.